Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to discuss a few more fluvial landforms such as meanders, alluvial fans, levees, floodplains, oxbow lakes, braided rivers, and deltas. Most of the information used for this video comes from the Grade 12 Geography Focused textbook and the Geomorphology Self-Study Guide from the Department of Education. Please note that it is important to read all the information in these sources and any other sources that you are using to increase your knowledge. Let's get started. Before we get into meanders, it is important to know that in the middle part of the valley, over here, closer to the sea, the gradient of the land is less steep. Lateral erosion, which is sideways erosion, and undercutting of river banks by abrasion and hydraulic action take place. This, with sheet flow and mass movement on the valley sides, will cause erosion of the spurs so that they become narrow and the valley floor becomes wider. So here is a spur, here's a spur, here's a spur, here's a spur, for example. So they're going to become narrower and the valley floor will become wider. The gradient of the river is reduced. It has less energy for vertical erosion, so not as much downward erosion, and a wider, more open U-shaped valley results. Meanders can occur in both the middle and the lower course of the river. In the middle course of the river there is more energy and a high volume of water resulting from tributaries joining the river. So he has a tributary, he has another one, and he has another one. In the lower course, meanders become more pronounced. You can see how more of a meander it is, and form on wide, flat floodplains where there is little relief and a gentle gradient. Alright, so meanders are bends in a river, as you saw on the very first slide and can see in this one too. So here we go, and here are other bends. These meanders form where the gradient is gradual and the river is flowing over softer rock layers. Bends in the river channel become more pronounced, as you can see here, and a meandering channel pattern begins to form. A meandering river has an asymmetrical cross profile, as you can see over here, as lateral or sideways erosion occurs on the outer bend. This is the outer bend, this is also the outer bend, another outer bend, where the river current is faster. So the river current is always going to be faster on the outer bend and slower on the inner bend. So it's going to be faster here and slower here. The force of the water and its suspended material erodes the outer bank over here, which becomes undercut and collapses. A small river cliff results. The channel is concave, as you can see, and deeper at the outer bend, so there is less friction and the river has more energy for erosion. So you're going to have more erosion taking place here. The slower current at the inner bank over here, as well as here, causes the river to deposit some of its load, as you can see, resulting in a gentle slip-off slope. This is the slip-off slope here. The channel is convex, so this is the convex shape here, and shallower. Meander loops have a tendency to migrate or move laterally and downstream. So this is, for example, meander loops that have moved over the years from 1946 to 2008. All right. It is important that you can draw and correctly label this specific cross profile. It is often asked in exam papers or even prelim papers. Should you be asked to draw this from a top view, so for example from a picture like this, ensure that if the outer bend is on the right, you draw it on the right as well. If the inner bend is on the left, you make sure that you draw your inner bend on the left. If they have labeled it or they ask you to label it, make sure that you put river cliff, deposition, erosion, slip-off slope on your image. Sometimes they draw a line through it and they label it A and B. Make sure you label it then A and B. This is important, otherwise you will lose marks. So please read your questions carefully. Okay. All right. Erosion at the outer bend of a meander narrows the neck of land between the meander loops. So this is your meander loop here, and the erosion here and here will narrow this neck of land that you can see here. You can see it a little bit better on this picture, and this is the deposition. The yellow here is the deposition that has taken place. So eventually the river cuts through the narrow neck, as you can see that's happening here, forming a straighter channel. This usually happens when the river is in flood. The water in the center of the channel moves quickly, but the water closer to the sides is going to move slower. As a result, you can have deposition taking place on the sides of the river, which eventually blocks off the old meander. So you can see, so you're going to have deposition taking place here, so the old meander will be completely blocked off from the river. So this then forms an oxbow lake. They occur mainly in the lower course of the river. Okay, the significance of oxbow lakes. They can be rich wildlife habitats, can be utilized for agricultural purposes, especially crop farming, and can be tourist attractions. Okay, so here are some pictures of an oxbow lake over here and over here. And then I also got some pictures of a meander scar over here and over here. Alright, so water is maintained in the oxbow lake during rainfall periods, flooding of the main stream. So for example, if the stream has flooded, water will gush into there and come out that side, or vice versa. And also water can be maintained here through underground water. But sometimes oxbow lakes dry up due to a decrease in the average rainfall or by silt deposits from flooding. So like here, it's had lots of flooding taking place of this river, but the silt has built up here, and the same has happened here. Alright, therefore this meander lake or oxbow lake will start to dry up. Right, and when they dry, they leave scars on the landscape. So here's one, here's another, and here are two as well. And these are called meander scars. So you might be asked what an oxbow lake is, and you might be asked what a meander scar is.
Let's look at alluvial fans, also found in the middle course. When a river flows off the mountains, for example here, onto the flatter plains, it loses energy and deposits materials such as gravel, sand, and smaller materials called alluvium. So this is it here. Deposition is in the shape of a fan, as you can see here, as well as here. And the river divides into separate channels in order to flow through this material. As you can see here, the channels. And then the green that you can see in the image on the right, or on this image, is farms that have been built around the alluvial fan. Alluvial fans are of practical and economic importance to society, and in particular in arid and semi-arid areas where they are the principal groundwater source for irrigation farming and the sustenance of life. So the water would come off the mountain, it would seep into the ground, and then the farmers in this area would pump it out of the ground. In some instances, entire cities such as Los Angeles over here have been built on alluvial fans. If you're interested in more information on alluvial fans, have a look at the Britannica website. It has some very interesting things to say.
We are now going to move on to levees, braided streams, and floodplains. These, as well as river meanders and oxbow lakes, which we have already discussed, form on wide, flat floodplain areas of little relief and a gentle gradient. The river channels in the stage has increased in size to hold the extra water that tributaries have added to the main stream. As the volume or the amount of water increases, the river can carry larger amounts of material in solution and suspension. Suspended particles are small in size, and these may erode the channel laterally sideways through abrasion. Okay, let us start with floodplains. A floodplain is a wide, flat area of land surrounding a river that continuously floods. So this would be the wide, flat area, and here, for example, is a river that is continuously flooding. Rivers flowing over land with a very gentle gradient, so it's flat. And this would be near sea level. They lose energy and deposit eroded material. Layers of light, small sediment, over here and here, is deposited on the wide, flat valley floor where the river floods, away from the river banks, which gradually builds a gentle sloping floodplain, as you can see here. There are a little bit of, there are a few slopes. Okay, the heavier load, such as rocks and pebbles, are deposited closer to the banks of the river. So they're not going to be deposited as far away as the fine silt. Okay, the fertile silt deposited by the river is called alluvium and provides fertile land for agriculture, as it was used. It still is, but as it's also been used many centuries ago in the past. It is easy to construct infrastructure on floodplains, and the flat area can be heavily populated, hence the development of settlements, as you can see here. There's also was a settlement of some sort on this floodplain. Floodplains can attract tourists for wildlife, and water can be used for economic and domestic purposes. Floodplains are beneficial for wildlife by creating a variety of habitats for fish and other animals. They preserve water quality by continuous refreshing of water due to flooding, so the water doesn't just stand. The continual flooding means that there's fresh water coming in. Floodplains also provide numerous recreational activities or opportunities such as canoeing, kayaking, camping, and hiking. The next landform we are going to look at is levees. Levees are natural embankments, raised river banks, which are formed when a river floods repeatedly. When the river floods, the biggest, most coarse material will be deposited close to the river banks, for example here and here, with the smaller, finer material being deposited further away here and here. Continuous flooding causes repeated deposition over here and here, and the banks then form levees made of sediments, silt, and other materials. Okay, the significance of natural levees. They prevent rivers from flooding. They are usually parallel to the way the river flows. So this is a levee here and is running parallel to the river. So they can help direct the flow. The fertile soil near levees is suitable for farming. Levees may be used to increase the amount of available land for habitation. So maybe a settlement is built, and this levee here will protect the settlement from flooding, but it all depends on how much flooding takes place. Let's look at braided streams. These are streams consisting of multiple small shallow channels or distributaries. So you can see here all the little channels, and in here and in here. They divide and recombine numerous times to form a pattern that resembles a braid. Braided streams form when a river carrying a heavy load loses energy. The river has a heavy load due to it flowing over loose, easily eroded material, as well as erosion of the sides of the river. So because this is material that is easily eroded, it means that it can be picked up quite quickly and carried away. The load, which is alluvium, is deposited in the middle of the channel. For example, here you can see in this picture, and forms islands. As a result, the river has to split into separate channels to flow around the islands. We refer to these rivers as having a braided channel pattern. Okay, the significance of braided streams. They are a source of water for crop farming. You can see here that I think this is in New Zealand, and they will get water from this braided stream here. Silt or alluvium deposits form fertile soil. The area helps to preserve bird life. The area hampers construction of infrastructure, and it's therefore very expensive to build roads and railway lines over these rivers. The final landform we will look at are deltas. Deposition near the mouth of an ocean or sea can result in these landforms. Large rivers that transport much material slow down at the mouth of an ocean or sea due to a gentle gradient and silt deposits. The river splits into distributaries, as you can see here in this picture, and loses velocity, which is speed. As a result, they deposit material from the bed load and suspended load. If the ocean or sea is relatively shallow and calm, the deposited material builds up and extends into the sea or ocean and forms a delta, as you can see here. Deltas can have different forms, but the most common delta is fan-shaped. For example, the Nile Delta, which is approximately 20,000 square kilometers. Okay, the significance of deltas. They are usually highly fertile areas. You can see in the satellite image the green. It shows you how fertile it is. And support extensive crop cultivation. Sand and gravel are also quarried from deltas and are utilized for a variety of purposes, road and building construction. They are important industrial hubs. Large settlements often grow in the delta regions. For example, here, this is in Egypt, and there are towns that have grown up on this delta. They are a source of water. They sustain ecosystems. They ensure biodiversity. Tourism opportunities are created by deltas and contribute to the economy. So people want to go and visit deltas. And deltas can be a part of water transport systems. So, for example, you can have boats on the rivers within the delta, which will transport people, for example. And deltas are a source of protein, for example, fish. Alright, these are the sources I've used, mainly for images, but you're welcome to have a look if you would like. And here. Alright, everybody, thank you very much, and good luck.